All right, so welcome back to the interview series, part 5. Hello, everyone. My name is Arun, and let's discuss these questions that I have uh, got into my blog. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which says, "What are Azure reservations? Disk reservations." Well, I know what you're thinking, and you're not thinking wrong. That's absolutely correct. It is exactly the same as virtual machine or RI, reserve instances. It is exactly the same. Just like reserving the instances, here we are reserving the disk. Okay, so if anybody asks you what are Azure disk reservations, you need to reply disk reservation is an option to purchase 1 year of disk storage in advance, reducing your overall cost for the storage. Azure Disk Reservation provides the option to purchase premium SSDs in the specified SKUs from P30 up to P80 for 1 year term. If we talk about the RI, it was 1 year and 3 years, but for disk, it is only 1 year. And there is no limitation on the minimum amount of disk necessary to purchase for a disk reservation. Additionally, you can choose to pay with a single upfront payment or monthly payment, just like RIs. Okay. I have mentioned all the answers and the relevant documentation in the below on the blog. I'll share this link in the video description and you can go and read about it. Or if you want to practice, you can practice without looking at the answer. If you are okay with the answer, that is good enough. But if you want to dig it a little more, you can go to the documentation page and read it more. All right, let's go to the question number second, which says difference between basic and standard public IP. Well, if you have seen my video on basic and standard public IP, you are all prepared to give the wonderful answer for your interviewer. Okay, but for now, for the interview practice, we can simply say Azure always been providing the basic IP addresses, public IP addresses, until the SKU is introduced where we got standard public IP. Well, standard public IP is something which is compatible with the standard load balancer. That's why we have the standard public IP, because we cannot use basic IP with the standard load balancers. Standard load balancers are zonal, they are zone redundant. So is the standard public IP, but basic IP is not. That's the huge difference. Your basic public IP can be dynamic and static, but standard can only be static. Okay. By default, your standard public IP is secure. That means it is closed. You need to whitelist the IPs. But that is not true for the basic. Basic is open. You need to apply the NSG. Otherwise, it will be open for everyone. Okay, these are the few differences. If you want to read more, you can go to these video and this documentation. Now, can we restore the Azure VM on a different region? If yes, how? What are the prerequisites? Well, this is something a tricky question, a wonderful question though, where you can show your interest, your presence in the Azure. For example, we all know this is not in generally available. Okay, so what exactly interviewer is want to know, whether you are up to date, whether you read the Azure update blogs, or you are aware about the Azure announcements. That's what he is looking for. And second, if you do, then how these things can be done. So to answer this question, yes, that is possible. And what are the prerequisites? You're gonna create the vault as GRS, geo redundant. Only then you can restore your Azure VM in Azure paired region. Okay, So if you create your vault as GRS, only then you have that option by which you can enable CRR, that is cross region restore, under the configuration blade of Azure Backup. All right. So these are the two prerequisites. You got to enable CRR, cross region restore, and you got to create your vault as GRS, geo redundant. Now, what is TCP idle timeout for a load balancer? Well, this question is a little deep and very good. Here you let the interviewer know that you actually know the Azure resources, what they are for. You are not just a guy who know how to create resources and things like that. Okay, so TCP timeout is a time for the session which is maintained between client and your cloud service. By default, it is 4 minutes, but you can go up to 30 minutes. Okay, a common practice is to use TCP keep alive, but that is not good for the applications which are mobile friendly because the battery life is involved. All right, so this is what the TCP timeout is. Azure Load Balancer has an idle timeout setting of 4 minutes. I told you that. If a period of inactivity is longer than the timeout value, there is no guarantee the TCP or HTTP session is maintained between the client and your cloud service. And when the connection is lost, the application would reply the connection was lost. Okay, things like that. Now, what do you think happened to the backend? Okay, we missed this one. How can we change the TCP timeout? That's a question for the Azure infrastructure people who actually create the resources. Well, you can create or you can change the TCP timeout on the public IP where you have the configuration settings, or to the load balancer's load balancing rule. You can change there as well. 30 minutes is the maximum that you can change. What do you think happened to the backend pool VM of a load balancer lost the internet? Well, this is a tricky question. If you know what I mean. The interviewer says load balancer. He did not specify internal and standard load balancer. So you need to, while you're replying this question, you need to more precise and focus on the words that would help the interviewer know, like you know what you're talking about. You need to reply, okay, you mean to say the backend pool VM behind the standard internal load balancer lost the internet. Once you say this, your interviewer would know that you know what you're talking about. Well, this is a known scenario. Backend VM behind the internal standard load balancer cannot access the internet. It's because outbound NAT is not available until outbound connectivity defined explicitly in the case of standard internal load balancers. That's why. Now, what is the fix of the above situation? That's the next question. Of course, you want to ask, like, how can you fix it? Well, there's a very simple fix. There is no way you can create the outbound connectivity, outbound NAT with the help of internal LB, but you can do that with the help of public LB. So you got to create the public standard load balancer, make the same VM as the backend pool, but no need to create the load balancing rule, but you got to create the outbound rule. That would help you to fix your internet problem. Now, next one, what changed in the instance restore and how does it impact your costing? That is again a question of architect level because the architect has changed for the Azure backup restore. Earlier when, well, let me explain this way. The restore or the recovery point involves, the backup involves two phases. The first phase is creation of the snapshot. Second one is the moving the data to the recovery vault. And once the data move to the recovery vault, only then the recovery point creates. That was the old way. But now after the upgrade, now after this feature, the recovery point creates once the snapshot is taken. Okay. Now You can keep that snapshot in your storage account for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. I think maximum is the 5 days. And so when you restore your VM, you have your snapshot locally in your storage account. You need not wait to rehydrate the data from your vault to your storage account. So overall timing for the restore is minimized. It's not like you are restoring in seconds, but it is like you are restoring in a very small amount of time as compared to the old way. Okay, let's talk about the question 9. What RBAC role is needed for AD sync configuration? That's the global admin. We all know when we do this, even in the lab, global admin is something we require for AD sync to work. Is there any port blocked by Azure globally? If yes, which one? Well, this is something I encountered when I was talking to my customer, and he was so adamant to talk to on port SMTP25, and I informed that's globally blocked for the security reasons. But if you insist, we need to go through certain scenarios and request MS to open the port. So to answer your question, it's port 25. Well, these are the 10 questions I brought in part 5. You can go ahead and check all the answers below. You can check the documentations for the deep study and stay tuned for more questions. Thank you for watching.